sometimes as sports fans, we just remember the moments of commentary. I remember when Arsenal won the league in '89 at Anfield, Brian Moore. It's up for grabs now. Thomas running through the middle. You can get cups with it all written on. And people do. I mean, I know you're not a social media fan, but people do play clips of your commentaries of goals and pre-match things. And is that in your life? Are you aware of all this?
It's hard not to be aware of it, but because people tell me.
But you're not on Twitter?
I'm not on Twitter, TikTok, or any of those things.
Well, you are actually, but if you want to say
him personally, no.
And I can honestly say, I never ever look them up.
Okay.
Never ever, because the world out there is pretty wild, and if things are nice, that's lovely. They might not always be nice, and I just think that I know my mindset. I haven't got a thick skin. I haven't.
I have not.
No. So, I don't want to be hurt, and I'm relatively easily hurt, and I also know that whether the stuff is positive or negative, it will impact on my head. And so, if I do a goal quite well one week, and people are saying that was lovely, I don't want to be tempted into thinking I have to do the same next week, because next week's goal might not be the same. And so it's best I watch back very often the games I've commentated on in the cold light of day, because that's the way to self-improve. And I listen to myself and said, you've used the same word 3 times there, you're boring. I don't like you, talk too much, shut up. Or sometimes I'm not denying something, yeah, that was all right.
Yeah.
Good. But so I do watch back my stuff, but no, I don't flattered though I am, if it's nice, I don't look back at any of that stuff because it's just not good for me.
So I'm going to ask almost a 2-part question. The first part is because you're not on social media, and you said you don't have a thick skin. Does that almost create a bigger expectation for you if you was on social media? And as well, does it make you more of a harsher critic on yourself? Because as you said there, you're watching it going, I should do that better, I should do that better. So instead of not being social media, relying on other people telling you what sounds better and what doesn't, you'd rather yourself sit there and go...
Well, I'd rather myself or my peers or my boss or my family. Which is not to be disrespectful. Honestly, I'm not. It would be stupid of me to sit here and say social media, blah. I'm in a minority. It's there, it's happening. I understand that. I'm not saying I'm right and they're all wrong. I'm absolutely not saying that. All I'm doing is protecting what I know about myself. And I know it's safer for me as the person I happen to be, and I'm a little bit of a softie, just to steer well clear. And
my second part is, you mentioned there as well how you'll sometimes look at your commentary and go, "Oh, that was good. Oh, that was decent." Can you give me a moment or pick out a piece of commentary out of the thousands of games that you've done where you've looked?
I'm going to say no, Charlie, and I'll tell you why. I
could have told you so.
Because I honestly believe that there's not much more arrogant than quoting yourself back. So I would hate to fall into that.
That's fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay,
that's fair enough.
I'm going to take the liberty of exposing you to some of the people who do like you, and I've got a message from you, and I'm going to just play you something to watch, which you'll be able to see in the edit too. I just need to prepare for this, folks. Okay, so I think if I start doing this, you might have a guess who this message is from, and I don't know what to use as my microphone, either the spanner or I'm going to go with the paintbrush actually. But it's not actually out. This is the message. So I've got it on the screen here. Hello, Peter. Over and over again, you have made the art of football commentary lovable for us, the fans, and here in Africa. It is you above the rest. Everyone is highly anticipating another exhilarating season with you, and it's with great pleasure I say, recreating your voice to the African people and the rest of the world gives me so much joy. Hopefully someday we will have you here in Africa, and I, along with Arap, will cherish every moment of it. And this is Young Noble commentary from Nigeria, and if you don't know Young Noble commentary, you should do. And he sent me a clip. This is his favourite one. He's the great lip sync. He's a funny guy. Let's have a look at this, Pete.
Yeah.
You may or may not have seen this, but
I have been sent one or two of these.
The World Cup has an African nation overcome the might of Brazil. It is into that challenge that Cameroon now march. Lions truly requiring of themselves to be indomitable. A tournament already of barely fathomable twists, scarcely believable outcomes. Is it truly conceivable that Cameroon can craft yet one more fairy tale narrative? Or is the stark brilliance of Brazil one reality too far? Bekele Abubakar! Oh, Cameroon! From Douala on the Gulf of Guinea to Marua at its northernmost tip, points between and beyond. Rise and celebrate a moment.
Well. Brazil have hardly had to do any defending in this second half, and it was almost as if they'd gone to sleep. They were dozing when this ball came in the box. Abubakar certainly wasn't. He was on his toes. He's had so little to go at in this match, but when it was presented to him, he didn't waste it. I said we'd had so many twists and turns.
He's going to be sent off here, Alan. It's a second yellow and a red for taking his shirt off.
Gotten
I
that.
thought there might be a red in this match, but not for that. In the heat of the moment, I think he'd just forgotten he'd been booked.
Well, he leaves with a smile. And he leaves with a memory.
What a ball in, that is. Drifting off his man. Lovely goal.
And for Cameroon, the most glorious win and bust. They become the first African nation ever to defeat Brazil at a World Cup. The vacant stares suggest they know it's almost certainly not enough. Play goes on at tonight's other venue. But regardless of the outcome here, Cameroon, if indeed they do now, begin the journey home, do so with a memory to cherish for life. A header from Vincent Abubakar right at the end of it all, snatching for them a victory that they and their nation will never, ever forget.
It's funny, isn't it? But it's
They're
also
great.
very skillful. I
They're
think, the way he
great.
does it,
They
yeah.
are great.
So that's the side of social media you want to be seeing.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, I have been sent that one actually. I have.
Yeah.
I try not to, but people do send them, and especially friends when they're nice. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
And actually, Alan Smith sent me that one.
Well, Alan Smith, mutual friend of ours. How important is that role of the? Sorry, I interrupted.
No.
What did Alan Smith say? Sorry, come.
No. Alan sent that for fun. And,
He sent it to you.
And I had a lovely month with Alan at the World Cup, who's a belting guy, as
Isn't
you know.
he? Yeah.
And they're of course important. I mean, if you want to talk about co-commentary, I think the point is this: that the role of the commentator and co-commentator ideally should be properly delineated. So it's my job to say who's got the ball, to know a bit about them, to know the backstory, to, as it were, to tell the story. This is only my opinion, others would disagree, but in my opinion, it's not the job of the commentator to have an opinion. So obviously commentary, kind of by its very nature, is often a series of micro opinions, as in great ball. Well, that's an opinion in a sense, but it's not my job to say the right fullback's 10 yards too deep, or the centre forward's taking up the wrong positions, or all that, because that for me is impudent if you're sitting next to a guy who played centre forward for England. So it's his job to have the opinion, because he's entitled to have that opinion. He's qualified to have that opinion, and to have the analytical brain, whether as a former player or coach or somebody who has been at the very top of the game. You and I have been around it tangentially for as long as we can remember, but we can never, as much as we think we know about stuff, we can never know quite how it feels, and they can. And I know I'm treading an awkward line here, because I've got lots of journalistic friends, as you have, whose job it is sometimes to have an opinion.
Yes.
And I respect that, but I think it's different, because on the whole they give their opinion journalistically as individuals within a newspaper, for instance. But if I'm sitting right next to someone who is patently, obviously, better equipped to feel the moment in a professional sense, then I think I should defer to that. So, and that also makes the roles much more straightforward to sort out each from the other. I'm very much who and where and when, and he or she is how and why.
I did actually play in a press match once when Alan joined the Telegraph and he started out as reporting, and he did play the ball through to me to score a goal. And I completely messed it up because I thought, Alan Smith has just passed the ball to me to score a goal. And the next thing I knew, someone had tackled me and I'd lost the ball. So you're right, I was totally unqualified to be on the pitch, let alone talk about it at the same level as him.
I played in a press match once on a European trip when I was working for BBC Radio, on a European trip with Aston Villa away to Helsingborg in Sweden. It was live on BBC television. Trevor Brooking was there. He played for us. And Trevor Brooking, having grown up with a little fondness for West Ham, Trevor Brooking was a massive hero of mine.
Special player.
So, and a beautiful, beautiful player. And 3 or 4 minutes into the game, the Swedish team broke. I was keeping goal. Swedish team broke, centre forward, 1-on-1, and I made, for me, a really good save. and Trevor, who was basically running the game from the centre circle, Trevor turned around and said, "Great save, Pete." And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Corner comes over, keepers. Sorry, lads. Ball's in the net. And Trevor said, "Pete, if you're going to come for it."
You can never win.
That was it.
I'm quite glad as well. You spoke about sort of having a moment where you've sort of gone like, "Oh, wow, that's Trevor Brooking. Like, oh my God." Talking about walking into a stadium, we've mentioned you've been to thousands of games. Where's a stadium that you've walked into and you've gone, like maybe for the first time, that you've gone, wow? What ones come to mind?
Again, I would say to you, Charlie, that I love going to any new stadium. I love that thing when you walk up through over the top and you see the grass, and that continues to thrill me, especially in our job where you're very often the first in or one of the first in and it's empty and you have it filling up and all that. But of course there are the wow stadia, and my favourite is, you don't need to be Einstein, it is the Bernabeu. I mean, it's just, that is wow. And it goes up and up and up in layers, like as many people have said, like a wedding cake. It's row after row of icing. And you're in there and you just have an overwhelming sense of, really? It's just brilliant. I remember back in the day going there, probably one of the first times I went there, doing a Champions League game for ITV, would have been 98, 99, whatever. And Real Madrid were playing Dinamo Kiev. And I went to watch Dinamo Kiev train the night before to try and sort out their less well-known players. But one of their training balls came off the field and landed at my feet, and I knocked it back to Shevchenko.
Wow!
So I can always say
Shevchenko.
So I can always say
Shevchenko.
I knocked it to Shevchenko in the Bernabeu.
That's incredible.
Commentating on your own part.
Speaking of the Bernabeu, you've had some incredible moments and incredible games as well. One that sticks out to me, being an Arsenal fan, by the way, is the Thierry Henry goal, scoring at the Bernabeu.
His signed boot.
Signed boot, by the way, we have in the background. Talk us about that moment, because that was incredible, right?
Yeah, no, that was obviously a big night for Arsenal, and a big night for me. I hadn't at that stage done as many of that sort of calibre of games, so it was lovely to get the story. I have heard that one back, and it slightly frustrates me because I think at the start of the move I'm talking about something else. I don't think I did that goal as well as I should have done because I was caught in a previous sentence. Don't look it up, Nick.
No, I'm not.
No. But nevertheless, mercifully, by the time he was putting the ball in the net, I was kind of hopefully up to speed, and it's just another reminder that honestly, the moment happens. Whoever's commentating on it, the moment belongs to the moment. And not to the broadcaster. That's the extent to which you sometimes get attached to a goal is crazy. You had nothing to do with it. And it's really important, I think, for commentators constantly to remind ourselves of that, because all we are is audio wallpaper. We're just blaring on there, and some people like the wallpaper and some people don't. And the football match will play out the same regardless of who's happens to be talking about it.
And you've had the privilege as well to commentate some amazing names again at the Bernabeu as well, but the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, as well as people before my time as well. But is it sort of Do you find it quite sad sometimes where you see these sort of players come to the end of their career? 'Cause
Yes.
it must be a real privilege for you to be able to commentate each game as it comes. It's almost, you don't want it to end.
Oh, definitely. But what is so reassuring is that the next one's always coming, thankfully, because you sort of think everyone's irreplaceable. Figo, Zidane. I used to love Kaká at the sort of the turn of the century. You think, wow, what happens when they've gone? And then it's Ronaldo and Messi, and then it'll be Mbappe, and we've got some brilliant English players. I mean, you know, if we could all do our job like Bukayo Saka does his job, you know, with a smile and with flair and without inhibition. And that's what all these people have in common, is the ability to shrug off inhibition and express themselves beautifully. And mercifully, people keep finding a way to do that. And I think it's a really tough thing to do. And so I just when you are about to sort of mourn the loss of one, there's another one there to pick you up again.
That ability to perform to best without fear and fear of failure is just, well, I envy it so much. I think one of the things, Pete, as much as you sort of put all this passion and you love the game so much, you take it so seriously, you also have a sense of perspective and proportion. And it's not life and death to you, football, is it? It's your life, but it's
really no. It really isn't. And I think. Listen, again, I don't want to be disingenuous. The partisanship, the passion, the noise, the fury, all of that stuff is what makes English football what English football is. And it would be a fool who wanted to be rid of it. But I sometimes think it's worth stepping back and looking at yourself. Are you sure? You know, it's just a bunch of people kicking a ball about. You know, and so that's kind of the contradiction, because it really, really does matter to people, and you'd be stupid to deny that. It's partly, if you like, reducing the stakes for me. You know, thinking if I shout the wrong name today, actually nobody dies. I'm probably embarrassed for a day or two, and it's a bad day at work. But the football match goes on regardless. And, you know, whatever the outcome of the football match is, by next Thursday, you know, we'll be previewing next weekend. And
it's true.
And on we go, and football is just a wonderful, wonderful soap opera. It's meant to be an escape. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be fun. So if it becomes so earnest that it's not fun anymore, I think we've slightly lost our way.
Mikel Arteta was saying this all last season when Arsenal in that title race, and saying, look, are you going to win? Are you going to do this? The pressure's on, the pressure. I guess, but look, we're top of the league. Just enjoy it. It might not last. Enjoy the ride. Yeah. And I think fans have to remember that, as well as us reporting it, that it's, yes, take it seriously, but, you know, have a sense of proportion.
Can you imagine these guys? Can you imagine Saka coming back from that penalty miss for England and then performing the way he did for Arsenal? Can you imagine Kane having come back from a penalty miss for England and scoring a 30-goal season for Tottenham? It's absolutely phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
It's a remark. Can you imagine Zach Crawley cover driving a first ball of the Ashes for 4, having had the last 6 months being told he shouldn't be being picked? I mean, that's extraordinary. Can you imagine Ben Stokes declaring, when all of us sad middle-aged folk are saying, what? Didn't used to do this sort of stuff. I mean, that's courage. And that's just love of the sport. It's incredible. So we should relish those people.
And as well, if you could pick yourself up and put yourself in a game that you haven't covered, what would it be, do you think? If you could, I find it really interesting, because you've done a lot of amazing games and covered amazing teams.
Charlie, the very obvious answer, because it's unreachable, would be World Cup Final 66. When you know, who wouldn't want to have been there when England won the World Cup? And there, the commentator came up with what must be the most famous unscripted line of all time. They think it's all over. No one will ever beat that one.
No.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I think it's interesting because you've covered some amazing games, and there's been some amazing moments, but sometimes you always think that, maybe if I could have done that game, I would have loved to. I just find it interesting.
Oh,
the 66 World Cup is incredible.
Listen, I think every journalist, every broadcaster, when they're sat at home watching on telly and, you know, it's a belter, thinks, wish it would me. Of course you do. Of course you do. Yeah.
And in terms of your research and notes, because again, this is another, I keep saying interesting, but believe me, it is interesting, is how you prepare for games. You said there between minute 1 and the 90th minute, you don't pre-prepare anything, no outcomes. You let the football do the talking. How do you prepare for each game? Do you have a certain different notes on each player?
I have something like 5 or 6 pages of A4 in a folder in front of me. And the first page is in pencil because it's the teams, which obviously when the team news is announced get rubbed out and changed and moved all about, and a nice big chunk on the referee. And page 2 is the home team, 25 names with all of their biographical detail and up-to-date stats and so on. And page 3 is the away team, and page 4 is the home team again with the coach and the staff and the upcoming fixtures and the last 2 or 3 11s and the sequences, and 4 without a home win, 7 without an away, all of that sort of stuff. And then the away team again. And the next page is what I call etc., which is kind of the meetings between them, great meetings between them, the narrative. As I said to you, what's it all about? And so that's it. That's my basic 5 or 6 pages.
And does it take you a long while to prepare for each game?
Yeah, I mean, on average, I say that one football match is 1 8-hour day at the desk. Yeah, on average. And that varies, because if you are doing Hampton and Richmond in the FA Cup, then you're starting from scratch. If you're doing Manchester United against Liverpool mid-season, clearly you're across the backstory. And so that's not to say that the challenge then is to find something new to say, because that's really tough when everybody knows everything about everybody. But when there's real research into, the postman who plays at left back, then that takes a lot longer than 8 hours.
And your voice as well, I think, to be a commentator, Nick mentioned a while ago that some people will like your voice and some people won't. You can't please everyone in life, but how do you work on your voice? Is it something you exercise or you train or you've done research growing up or anything like that?
No, but I should, especially the older I'm getting. And it's something I'm thinking about. I mean, I can't, it's too late now to change my voice, but it might be sensible to do a little bit of voice PE, just to keep it going.
By the way, this is not me calling Peter Drury old, by the way.
No, but it's true.
Like
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because it is something you do have to think about. Even being like myself, being a bit younger, it's still something you have to train.
You do have to. You're absolutely right, and it's something I've kind of taken for granted. And one day I'll get a kick up the backside for taking it for granted. So, thank you.
No, my pleasure.
G-Man here in the ID studio said he thought you were from Birmingham.
Oh, I'm really not. And as well, what would you say is, there's lots of hard parts about every sort of industry. But let's say during a game, what do you find is the biggest challenge about being a commentator, would you say?
During a game, I think it is self-editing, knowing when to talk and when to shut up. And I put my hand up and say, I don't always get it right, and I don't think anyone does. It is, if anything, a football match for a commentator is a feat of concentration, because you are very often just relaying names, name. So identification is absolutely critical, particularly on the television. Radio is a very different craft, and description is clearly important because it's an absolutely blank canvas. But on the radio, and I say this with no disrespect because I love radio commentary and it's done brilliantly by a lot of very good people, but sometimes on the radio, one thing you can get away with is a player on the far side in possession. You're thinking, not quite sure who that is, so just talk about the smell of the burgers, until someone else has got the ball, and that's fine. I would do that and have done that. On television, shouting the right name is important because people can see you've got it wrong. And you do get it wrong. Within a game, 2 or 3 times say a name and think, oh, it wasn't him actually. And you sort of think, you get that kind of electric shock. So self-editing and concentration on identification, those are the kind of key things.
Yeah, I think, Pete, thank you for coming in today and spending so much time with us. When you're such a busy man at the moment, you're a man in the news a bit because of your successful commentary career. So thanks for coming to the HaytersTV podcast studio. I have found it fascinating. I've known you for 30 odd years. I've still found it fascinating. I would love to hear a clip of you commentating on the ironing. And
to get that going.
And whatever you commentate. As you know, I've always been a champion of your cause, and you're really good at your job.
Thank you.
And above all, just a really nice guy.
Bless you.
And I hope people have got some nice tips on how they can be the next Peter Drury or almost as good as Peter Drury.
By the way, God bless Reg Hayter. God bless him. Yeah.
Incredible. Listen, guys, we really hope. I mean, I'm sometimes a bit speechless. If you see a wider shot, you see me just in awe sometimes, because I do find people like Peter very, very interesting. I'm sure you guys have as well. And as well, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you do drop a like. Important to subscribe so you do not miss another video across the season and as well on our podcast series. And also comment down below any more guests you'd like to get, because the first two have been a banger. This one's been an absolute belter. So again, thank you so much for taking your time to come into the studio today. But from myself, Charlie Willard, and Nick Callow, we'll see you for episode 3.